All right, well, welcome everybody to our Sycamore Creek Church Town Hall meeting on Wednesday, February 16th, Digital Town Hall. It's kind of nice how you can just hang out in your living room or kitchen and go to a town hall rather than going out on a cold, wet night. We have kind of two big things we want to reflect on here tonight. One of them is just give you some updates on what's happening with the Asbury adoption, and then talk a little bit about COVID and what's next, what the next steps are for us. But first, we want to, just as we usually do, take some time to celebrate. And we're going to put you into some breakout rooms to do that. And let me share my screen here so you can see the agenda. Just reflecting on this question, where have you seen us accomplishing our mission? Where have you seen God show up? What are you excited about at Sycamore Creek right now? It's always good to start with a little bit of celebration. So let me pray, and then Mark, could you work on getting people into breakout rooms?
Yes, I can.
All right. Well, let's pray. God, we're grateful for the chance to gather together tonight and just talk as a community, do a little bit of community discernment and conversation. Bless this meeting, even though we're in all kinds of different places, and help us to be attentive to where you're showing up in our church, and both in the past and in the present, and moving into the future. In the name of Jesus, in the power of your Spirit, amen. All right. Mark, you want to put us in those breakout rooms?
I've done it. And the breakout rooms are ready, and I'm going to send you to them.
Here we go. All right. So we've had your chance to talk in a group just about what you're excited about, where you've seen God at work. So we want to invite you to share one or two things that maybe you or somebody in your group said. For me, one of the things recently was that somebody told me that on the first week of this Holy Conversations series that they experienced the good news as good for the first time in their life. And that is like crack cocaine to a pastor's ears.
Absolutely.
That's probably a really mixed metaphor for a pastor to use, but you get the idea. How about others? Come on, everybody, don't be shy.
I shared with my group that with small groups, we're back to a course offering that is as strong and diverse and accessible as it was pre-pandemic, if not more so. So for that to happen, I think God is at work in that, and it's helping keep people connected in a season of disconnection.
In our group, we had the letter to Birmingham jail done by the kids this year, and you know how much the various kids enjoyed doing that, and the partnering that took place to make that happen. And certainly this conversation tonight about possibly joining with Asbury, just like we did with Potterville, and how that helped Potterville. So hopefully it could do the same with Asbury and for Sycamore Creek as a whole. And then I'm just excited about being on the creation care team, and that out the South Penn campus. We got a dishwasher installed. Thank you, Thomas. And mugs ordered. So we're getting ready. When we all are coming back and we're going to start serving coffee and stuff, we'll be taking better care of our earth. So God's earth. So
that's awesome. Thank you, Shelley, and the rest of the green team for working hard on that. Anybody else?
If no one else is going, I'll share that yesterday I met with a community member in Potterville who has a daughter with special needs, and her daughter has a very short attention span. And so they've not really been comfortable coming to in-person worship, but they've been able to join Potterville online since last April. And it's someone I had no idea who was attending online. And the only reason I found out was because she would like to have her daughter baptized. And so we met yesterday to talk about baptism. And it was really exciting to see the fruit of online worship producing someone who would like to be baptized.
More crack cocaine for the pastor's ears.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
That's amazing. Yeah. All right. Well, there are a lot of things happening, and it's kind of hard to see it all. But when we all put together what we're noticing about what God's up to, it adds up to a lot. Thank you, God, for the way you continue to move in our church. Want to just fill you in a little bit on where we're at with Asbury, and let you know a couple of things in relation to that. First of all, before I go deep into the details of how this would happen, we were hoping to be able to share a little bit more really specific details with you tonight, but it just didn't happen as we were hoping. The time, you got to let things kind of go as they go, timeline wise. But we hope that perhaps very soon we'll be able to put some real flesh on this for you, and to be able to make some really specific descriptions of what's happening, including potentially within the month or so a possible vote on making this happen or not. So things are going to move really quickly as soon as the green light happens, because there's a lot of organizing behind the scenes going, and there's a couple things we're just waiting on, and once that happens, all the pieces will be in place, and we'll be able to bring you a lot more kind of specific information on it. But what we'd like to do tonight is share with you kind of a draft plan for how this will work. And if you were at the town hall meeting or participated in it online that we did with Asbury, we did walk through a little bit of this. But one thing, if this happens, well, first of all, there would be a vote sometime, perhaps maybe in the next month or so, that the whole church would be able to vote on. We would have a joint church conference, probably at Asbury, kind of like what we do with Potterville. And that would be for the adoption to take place on July 1st. In May, then we would start to incorporate Asbury into GroupLink, and their leadership has expressed to us that it would be super helpful to have some very personal invites to small groups and events to the folks at Asbury should we move forward with this. And so we're contemplating the idea of sometime in May hosting, we don't usually do a small group fair where the small group leaders all are present, but inviting everybody who's available as a small group leader to be at Asbury one Sunday, to kind of meet people, introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what their small groups are and so on. It's going to take a little extra effort to really welcome and incorporate folks into it. And part of the reason for that is that what's going to happen, which is different than what happened with Potterville, is that we're going to close this campus down for about a year. So the incorporation of Asbury into the life of Sycamore Creek is going to have to be much more intentional. They're going to start to attend one of the other campuses and small groups, and there's several reasons for that. But let me just sort of walk you through some of the mechanics of it first. In July, we're going to do something. The last 2 Julys, we have done kind of joint services between Potterville and South Lansing. and 1 week South Lansing leads and 1 week Potterville leads. And so if you wanted to be in person, you would go to whichever campus was leading. This July, we are going to rent Woldemar Nature Center for the 4 weeks of July, the first 4 weeks of July, actually the last week of June for Baptism Sunday, and then the first 4 weeks of July. So that worship in person will be at the same place every time, but it'll just be South Lansing will start the first week, and then Potterville the second, South Lansing third, Potterville the fourth. And Asbury would come and join us for those services. And then on July 31st, there would be a final celebration of ministry and life service for Asbury UMC. You can kind of think of this as a little bit of a memorial service. We're going to remember and celebrate the life and ministry of how God has been at work at Asbury. And that will be their last worship service in the Asbury building. Probably will shut down South Lansing that morning and just invite everyone from South Lansing to Asbury. Not certain of that detail exactly, but that's probably what we would do. Sometime, by the way, in July, if the appointment system works, for finding a leader to join the team, that first Sunday in July would be a new person joining our team. If the appointment system doesn't work, we're kind of in the thick of that as well right now. The bishop has given us his blessing for us to hire an independent recruiter to do a nationwide search, both inside the United Methodist Church and outside the United Methodist Church. So that would all be happening in July. In August, then Asbury folks would begin attending one of our campuses on Sunday morning. Probably have a small group, like a Sunday school class of some sort, because it's going to be a kind of grieving that I think will happen, as what was once isn't happening anymore, is no longer. And then, of course, you all kind of know the rhythm of this, that September is a group link. So this is where we're really encouraging folks to plug into our small groups. By the way, also in May at this group link, they have a couple of small groups that are meeting right now. And we would incorporate those into these group links. October through December, again, they're attending one of Sycamore Creek's campuses, and we are on-ramping a new pastor at that point. If the appointment system works, it would be July 1st, that new pastor would start. If not, the average for a recruiter to find someone for a church is 4 to 8 months. So we'll probably know in the next couple weeks to month if the appointment system is going to work for us and find the right person. And if not, then it'd be probably we would engage a recruiter, and 4 to 8 months from that point, we would be on-ramping someone new. In January, we would start to pull together a launch team. Again, of course, is group link. And then in February, we would bring in a coach or consultant. Jim Griffith is the person that we work with. Mark and I both coach with him. This actually, like launching new churches and doing training for that, is what he is most well known for. So we'd probably fly him up, poor guy, from Florida in February to do some training with the launch team. That launch team, by the way, one of the things that's going to be really need to do to make this work is we're going to have to add some particularly young families, families with children, to this launch team. Asbury basically doesn't have any families with children. And so it's very unlikely that new families with children are going to show up or connect with this new, it's probably going to be called our Eastwood campus, with the Eastwood campus, if there aren't any new families. So we're going to be looking for launch team members. Of course, not everybody can go do this, but we'll be looking for a good number of people. In March, that launch team would begin meeting, canvassing, networking, having some building community meetings. Somewhere in this whole process, we would start to remodel the building. Asbury does have a sizable endowment, and we would be looking at liquefying that endowment to be able to dump into the building. And so one of the reasons of closing the whole thing is we could actually almost do all of what we've spent on the South Lansing campus is about what's in the endowment. So we could potentially do that whole remodel in one shot, essentially. I don't know if that's what we'll do, but that's the possibility there. So this launch team isn't meeting at Asbury. Then on Easter, we would have some sort of community Easter worship service out in the community. In May, June, July, August, and September, there would be a preview service. If you may remember when we launched Church in a Pub or Church in a Diner, we'd have a launch team, and then we'd once a month do a preview service. But that would also be paired with weekly canvassing, networking, community meetings, comebacks, social splash events, to being out in the community. I mean, the thing about launching a new church or new campus is that it's just relationship building, building new relationships, networking, building new relationships. So all of that would happen. And then on October 1st, we would launch a weekly public worship. So that gives you a feel for where that's at. The two primary challenges right now are leadership and finances. And we're working with the cabinet right now. I've already told you about that as far as finding a pastor to join our team or perhaps hiring a recruiter. On the financial side of things, there's going to need to be a partnership between several different financial partners to make this work. Of course, one of those partners are the people who are already at Asbury, continuing to stay through this, which is why that transitioning and kind of incorporating and making the extra effort to make them feel welcome, so that we lose as few people as possible. There's no way that we're going to keep everybody, because that's just not realistic. But the more that we can hang on to, the endowment that Asbury has, our own financial giving, we are financially stronger than we have ever been in the 13 years that I've been at Sycamore Creek. It's just kind of mind-boggling to me. And so financially, we're at the right time and right place for this. We're also getting ready to do a generosity drive, which you'll be hearing more about, that perhaps will help that even more. But we have a letter of intent from the new church team of the conference for this as a church plant. That is a letter of intent to grant us $150,000 over 3 years, $50,000 each year. And you can kind of think of it as a pre-approval for a mortgage. We still have to fill out the mortgage and everything has to play out, but we have been told that they are willing to lend us up to $150,000 over 3 years. We're also applying for a grant from the district to match that at least. And then from our capital campaigns in the past, you may remember that we've been tithing 10% of those campaigns for our next venue. And so we have $50,000 in our own capital campaign next venue fund. So those are that's kind of the broad outline. And what we want to do is we want to put you back in groups, because you probably have a bunch of questions, and we're going to put you back in a group for you to just ask each other, what are any questions that you have? And then we're going to come back and spend a little bit of time answering those questions. All right. So Mark, you want to put folks in their small groups again?
Oh, there, it helps stay unmuted. I'll do that. So I'm opening up rooms. If you hadn't been assigned to a room yet, I will quickly get you into one. But here you go, your rooms to discuss.
We're gonna start recording again, and just want to invite you. You can type a question in the chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself and ask any questions, we will try to answer them.
Yeah, Shelley has a question right away.
No, I was waving.
Oh, just waving?
Yeah, I said
Maybe
Jerry's
waving,
son.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I
at
can't
kids,
remember
to
his name.
kids. Jair.
What is it?
Jair.
Jair.
Yeah.
Hi, Jair.
Kids and video screens are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any questions that you want to ask, or?
One of the questions I had was about, I was just wondering, like wanting to know maybe like a little bit more about like this, what a launch team is. What does that mean? What does that entail? I was kind of intrigued by that.
Yeah, thanks for asking about that, Julia. I think back to my first job when I was a teenager, and I got hired at a Fazoli's, but it was a Fazoli's that hadn't opened yet. And so they're hiring people before they open, and then you train together, and then there's like the friends and family night where you can invite all your friends and family to come and eat for free, and it tests your systems, and you see how bad you are at everything, but nobody complains because it was free to begin with. And then a month later there's the grand opening or something like that, and that group of employees who train and do the kind of preview, they're the launch team. So in this case, the launch team will do a little bit of training in February with Jim, and then we're going to spend the next several months building relationships, inviting people, doing kind of community events to connect with the community, inviting them to those preview services, which is kind of like the friends and family night at like launching a restaurant, and then hopefully sticking around as we launch this as a campus in October. That answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. We've done this twice with Church in a Diner and Church in a Pub, building launch teams. And although this has a little bigger stakes to it in the sense that it's a whole other campus. Were there no other questions? Just super crystal clear?
Yeah. Or it's so unclear no one knows how to ask a question about it.
Or we've done it before and people are just like.
Actually, you may have said this at the other town hall meeting, but I can't remember about how many families or couples or what's the makeup of their current church?
They're at, yeah. So Asbury has about 30, maybe 40 people. I'm not sure how many families that are who are actively participating right now. It's a much more mature conversation or congregation. So
I'd feel right at home, in other words.
but lots of grandparents, but a lot of people have been very faithful over the years, and have hung on through a lot of ups and downs, and they're kind of desperate and hopeful that God will do something new there. Also, it's very nerve-wracking because it is something new. If you were at Potterville, if you're here, you probably have some feel for what that was like before.
And the other question I had was we do a lot of stuff online, Zoom and everything else. And I'm guessing, like you said, they're a more mature. Will they be, have we thought about how that's going to work with them? All of them might not even have email, let alone, know how to, so I don't know if you've talked about that at all, or it's probably going to have to look at least a little bit.
Yeah, John, I can think, like the question you raise is a sort of under a bigger umbrella of what is ministry going to look like at this new campus? What will worship look like? What does worship look like right now? I mean, I'm still, this is part of what we'll talk about here in a minute, but are the adaptations that we have made at South Lansing and Potterville, are they adaptations for a season? Or are they things that will just, this is the way that we worship from now on? I mean, I don't really know the answer to that, but so I don't know what it'll look like. I think one thing that Sycamore Creek is really good at is we're really good at adapting, and we kind of, there's this sort of catchphrase, maybe you've heard it, is to fail fast forward. We're not afraid to make mistakes and then learn from them and do it a little differently. So I think how we incorporate folks who maybe don't have as much computer literacy is something that's one of the landscapes of ministry in this setting that we'll have to adapt and be creative with.
Okay, that was just, I say, that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Thanks, John.
Justin was asking in the chat, how do we get connected with Asbury UMC to possibly adopt them? Great question, Justin. The answer is that the district superintendent came to us and said, are you interested in talking about a possible adoption with Asbury? And I said, yes, because, well, first I said, yes. And then I was like, oh my gosh, the timing is like, it's a pandemic. But the current pastor there, John Pohl, who's being reappointed July 1st somewhere else. When John was first appointed there several years ago, he and I got together for coffee, and I said, hey, if you're ever interested in talking about an adoption, come talk to me. And I told him this, and I still think it's true. I think Asbury has the best United Methodist location in the Lansing region, because it's so easy, it's so regional. I mean, I think, how far do people drive to Eastwood? I'm seeing Tim Newman from St. John's. I'm pretty sure people from St. John's probably drive down to shop at Eastwood, maybe Alma. How far south does it go? People probably from Leslie come up. People from the west side, from Hazlitt, Lansing, Holt, DeWitt, East Lansing. I mean, it's a regional space, and then it backs up against a Groesbeck. So that's why, I had talked to John about it many years ago, and then that was as far as it went. It was like just a dropped in a little conversation. We get approached quite often, actually, by our DS about adopting various other churches, and most of them we say there's a lot of boxes that have to get checked, and this one checked a lot of the boxes. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask them, or type them in the chat. Mark, I'm not seeing a lot more questions, so I'm gonna take that as we've been clear, or there's a lot of trust, or we've been totally unclear and everybody's totally confused. But stay tuned, because we do hope to have some really more specific details that we can potentially share at our town hall meeting on Sunday, which those will be in person at each campus. But we're just not quite there yet. So all right, so we've covered the Asbury side of this adoption, the Asbury side of this agenda, this town hall meeting, and we want to turn the corner to COVID. And Mark, I think we were gonna put people in pairs for this, just so everybody has a little bit more deep chance to talk about this question. Where are you at with COVID? And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about where we are at with COVID. We did this survey and share with you the results from that survey and so on. So Mark, you want to?
So I have all the rooms ready. I did my best to do pairs, but some of you are muted, not able to talk, and so there might be some threes mixed in here, but it's all twos or threes. And here we go. I'm going to send you to your rooms. Oh, there we go. Now that we're recording, now it's official. Our next thing is to go over the survey that we sent out. We sent out a survey that's been available for a couple weeks, and we've had 42 people respond. So thank you to everyone who filled out that survey and provided us with some information. It's really hard to get a sense of where people are right now with COVID and with things. And so the survey is a helpful tool for us to sort of listen to what people have to say. And the amazing thing is, in that 42 surveys, every single person answered every question about COVID the same. No, I'm just kidding. We were all over the place, which is COVID, right? We are not all on the same page, but let me share with you a little bit of what we have going on. Let's see here. Let me get this. I'm just going to share with you my screen so that you can see. Hopefully you can all see that. This is just some overall data from that survey. One of the things we asked is what campus you're part of. Do you attend in person or online? And what you can see is that roughly 60-ish% of the people who responded were from our Lansing campus, and about 40% were from our Potterville campus. We asked some follow-up questions too, like, are you involved in worship and how frequently? And almost everyone who answered is, a very regular attender or semi-regular attender of worship. These are also people who are regularly involved in small groups. So they're also people who would probably show up for a town hall meeting. So yeah, it's quite possible that many of you are the people who helped fill this thing out. So thank you for doing that. And the main thing that I wanted to highlight is the results that we had in terms of COVID. And this will require a little bit of interpretation of this pie chart. But if you think of the left half of that pie chart, which is maybe like an orangish color, about 50% of people said that in terms of in-person gatherings, they're ready to meet in person with masks. That's the option that resonates with them. As we created our survey, we recognized that there was a hole in this survey, and one of the questions we initially asked is, are you ready to meet without masks? And a little less than 10% of people who filled it out said that yes, they were ready for that. We then realized, well, we could also have an option of, it's not either with a mask or without a mask, you can make a mask optional. And so we added that option, and about 25 or 16.7% of people like that one. So overall, about 25% of people were either ready to meet without masks or with mask optional. And then the remaining 25%, you can see the legend there on the right. We had all sorts of fill in the blank answers from all sorts of different people saying where they are. So overall, what we gather from this is that most people want to have the option of masks, so either optional or with a mask. And there's a small percentage of people who are comfortable meeting in person without mask. Some of the other questions that we asked related to asking about online worship, Zoom small groups and things like that. And the overall response of that was that online worship is really important for people's spiritual growth. It's also important for our outreach. Things like Zoom groups are really important for spiritual growth. They're really important for outreach, things like that. Overwhelmingly, the options that we offered, the people who answered, who are again very connected with our church, felt positively about those results and what we're doing. So those are the results of the survey.
So I think we wanted to just take a moment and say kind of where we think we might be going as a church with this. And, what between when we scheduled this town hall meeting and now, at least in Ingham County, the health commissioner, Linda Vale, dropped the indoor mask mandate. And then like Holt schools, for example, are now kind of, they sent us a letter saying, we know that the county no longer requires it. Our board is meeting, still send your kids to school with masks and so on. What we're thinking about doing is kind of a stepped process. And actually in some ways, Potterville's already kind of doing this, but where there would be portions of what we do where masks would continue to be required, at least for a period here. And then there would be other portions of what we do where masks are optional. So at South Lansing, what we're thinking about doing, we're working on getting the cafe back up. As Shelley noted, we have a new dishwasher and we have new mugs. So we're very excited about that. And we're aiming to reopen the cafe in March. March 6th is the first Sunday in March. Of course, you can't drink coffee with a mask on. So the cafe would be a space where masks were optional. You can be in that space and take your mask off to drink coffee if you would like. You can be in that space and wear a mask and not drink coffee if you would like. But for the time being, keeping the sanctuary as a mask required space. As you saw, that there's about half of the people are still not ready to return unless masks are part of what you're doing. And at least at South Lansing, the way that works is if you wanted to be very cautious, you could just enter the front door and exit the front door, and you would be kind of in a self-enclosed space where masks were always on. And if you wanted to go into the cafe after the service and hang out and mingle and take your mask off and have some coffee, you could do that. One of the things that struck me in the article that I read by Linda Vale was she said that we are moving from this being a public health issue to an issue of personal responsibility. And so, at 2 years in, it feels to me like everybody knows what the risks are. You've had your chance to be vaccinated or not be vaccinated. So it's really up to you at this point if you wanted to do that. But also still, of course, there are a number of people who are cautious. So keeping, again, the sanctuary as a space for the masks on, and the cafe masks are optional. You may wonder, what about kids? And I think we've been drafting behind the schools. So as the schools shift and change, right now, most of the schools that are at least in the South Lansing region still require masks, and our Kids Creek team will kind of monitor that and keep pace with it. Mark, you want to talk about some next steps at Potterville?
Yeah, so at Potterville, we're going to basically continue doing what we have been doing, which is when you come into our fellowship hall, it's a space where we've been offering coffee. And like Tom said, of course, in order to drink coffee, you have to take your mask off. And then once you get beyond our fellowship hall, it's been a place where we ask people to wear masks through our hallway and then into our worship space. And people have done a great job with that. We will continue, as Tom said, to have masks for now in our Kids Creek area. And in Potterville, I'm excited. We are working toward getting our nursery open. And we're hoping that the beginning of March, we're going to be able to start regularly offering nursery for kids who are 4 and under. And that'll be a nice supplement because we have a number of families with kids who are in that age group where it'd be nice to offer. And then we've had some guests too, where that would be helpful to offer to guests where they could have nursery. Of course, on really little kids, we do not require masks. If they're real little, that's not a reasonable expectation. And I do think overall, like Tom mentioned, we're seeing that there are changes in mask requirements, and that we're going to take that into account moving forward. And I would imagine at some point we'll relax our mask requirements and maybe move to mask optional, but we're not there yet. But I do see that on the horizon, and we'll continue to have discussions, and we'll continue to listen, and we'll continue to consult health experts on that. But I think it's helpful to know that that's something we see in the future, but who knows when. That's been my reality throughout the whole pandemic. Who knows when?
This is assuming that there's not another variant and surge, and this is, I think, related again as we adapt and pay attention to that. So,
well, we all know that when we get to the Omega variant, that means we're done.
All right, so you may have some questions about all of that, and again, we want to put you back in some small groups here for questions you may have. We do this, by the way, because not everybody wants to talk out loud, but you may want to, or at least in front of the whole group. And if you're an introvert, it's always a little bit helpful to practice with somebody, and you get to process a little bit with them. So Mark is putting you in a small group again. We're going to spend about 5 minutes there, and then we're going to come back and do some Q&A about COVID.
Okay, here we go.
Well, then they just
Here.
you don't need recording.
All right, so you had a chance to ask some questions or talk about questions you might have, and you can unmute yourself and ask those, or you can type them in the chat. Or
Tom, what date did the survey first go out? Because I feel like there's been so much has changed with this whole thing in the last 4 weeks.
wow, I don't think it was more than 4 weeks, but
Maybe.
it hasn't been longer than a month.
No,
But you're right, Teresa, this is a moving target.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure some of the survey responses could be outdated already.
February 2nd.
Everywhere you second.
No, February
February.
2nd.
February.
Oh. Yeah, so that's only like 2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. Okay.
No, a survey. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've sent it out several times and posted on Facebook, and
The first time I saw it was February 2nd.
One of the things Tom and I didn't mention in terms of next steps is just that online will continue to be an option offered by both campuses. So, we've kind of focused on next steps in terms of in-person stuff, but we definitely plan to continue to offer online options. And I don't see that changing for South Lansing or Potterville at any time.
yeah, we're going to talk on Sunday about some campus specific things. So we were trying to do the things here tonight that were generic to the whole Sycamore Creek.
I think online's important, but online could be a thing that keeps people away on Sunday morning versus the fact that they have to wear a mask, or, people are masked or unmasked. Because it is very convenient. I do think we need to continue it, but that might be kind of one of the consequences, repercussions, whatever.
Well, I know I personally have found that I'm more engaged in the service when I'm there in person.
Yeah.
And we've kind of, committed to putting forth the effort and not sitting in our jammies watching it on TV and getting up and around. And we're still a little late, but, we're trying to get there. So.
I think old people are like that, Teresa. That's why I'm there,
Bob.
and I appreciate it. Yes. John and I had a nice discussion, and one of the things did breach on that a little bit. It was making sure that those who may have a little bit more of a challenge with getting online, we have really clear instructions as far as how to access and all that, and especially not just with that, but with also accessing small groups and any other resources available, having that very clearly laid out for people. Otherwise, people are going to feel perhaps dumb to not want to ask questions because they feel dumb about it. So.
Thanks, Bob.
There's 3 of us in our group, and some health issues came up. There's a family that can't worship in person yet because of the immune system's compromised. And so this has been a real blessing, to experience online worship, and thinking of that as a kind of venue might be something that we continue to do. I talked about when I went through cancer treatment, and on the Sundays after infusions, I was home, but there was no online worship at that point. So how powerful that would have been for me to be able to stay connected to my community with that as an option. So there's a way that COVID has kind of pushed us to be more creative with that, that we might consider, carrying through from here in some form.
I also think that, like Tom was saying, for introverts, it might be easier to go online and see us for the first time rather than to show up in a church.
Yeah, I think at both campuses, we've had that experience of people attending online for a little season and then coming and in person. I can think of a handful of people at South Lansing, and when I was at Potterville on Sunday, which was absolutely wonderful to be there, there were lots of faces that I had never met, at least in person. So that I think first attended online and then started coming. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, Rotten Tomatoes you want to throw?
That's a question you can really only ask on Zoom, Tom, but throwing Rotten Tomatoes.
You can throw Rotten Tomatoes at me on your screen as much as you want.
Yep.
By the way, when Bob Trout was over helping me prune my trees a week or so ago, and I asked him about some of the stuff, he told me that he's now retired and he doesn't answer questions about COVID anymore. So, and then he remembered that he wasn't retired from the church.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, hey, I'm not hearing a lot of other questions or comments, so I'm gonna turn us towards the end of this meeting. This is your last chance.
Until Sunday.
Till Sunday. Yeah. All right. Well, a couple things we just want you to be aware of. We have these town halls on Sunday at both of our campuses, roughly right after the service. Potterville doesn't have the ability to live stream anything because the internet stinks there. I mean, Mark's on a Zoom meeting with me this afternoon from Potterville, and occasionally he freezes up or does weird things. But at South Lansing, we will broadcast that in Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube. Coming up, last year we adapted a little bit. We moved this gas giveaway to Mardi Gras Fat Tuesday so that we could do an Ash Wednesday service, and we're doing that again this year. So gas giveaway felt a little more appropriate to Fat Tuesday, at least it's generosity. We also are realizing that $5 doesn't get you much anymore, so we're upping it to $10 free gas. Perhaps sometime in March, we'll be having some town halls with Asbury. What our goal is that if this moves forward, that we'll have a joint Q&A with them, and then probably a vote not long after. We'd originally scheduled a core workshop on the 18th and 19th of March, but that's not happening. On March 20th, and you're gonna start to hear about this, we're gonna be doing starting a generosity drive. This is in lieu of or in place of the capital campaigns that we've done in the past. Our most current capital campaign ends this March, as far as the commitments that people made. And so we were asking, what are we doing next? We're gonna do basically the way that a lot of churches do it, which is an annual commitment, opportunity to make a commitment. And you'll be getting more information about that. We do still have lots of things that we would like to do with our buildings. We just got our mortgage under 100,000. We've almost cut it in half over this last capital campaign. So we're super excited about that. But we do still need to pay that off. We also have some, we still have some things we would like to get Potterville to a place where they are financially self-sufficient for the long haul. We also would like to give our staff some raises that we can sustain for the long haul. And then of course we have this Asbury adoption coming up. So those are some key things that will exert some missional pressure on our budget over the next year. And you'll have the chance to commit to that, as well as make some commitments to our ongoing relationship with Dr. Mir in Nicaragua. We feed a lot of kids every morning through her church. Then we get into Easter. Actually, this is a little bit missing a couple things. On Wednesday, Potterville is doing a Living Last Supper, and then a car wash on Thursday. What's missing in here is on Friday, we're going to be doing a Good Friday poetry slam in my garage with free barbecue again. That was a big hit, Willie D's. We learned a little bit about how to do that better, so we'll have the sound better this time. On Saturday, I think both of our campuses are doing community Easter egg hunts. And then we also may have a service again at Sanctuary Spirits with free tacos from the taco truck. And then of course, Easter, we'll have our sunrise services. Something we realized that we've never really advertised with our sunrise services is that you can bring your pets because it's outdoors. So it's a pets welcome. So if you would like to bring your pet snake to Mount Hope Cemetery to celebrate the resurrection with us, bring it on. And then we have our normal services. We're at South Lansing. We're gonna try to get Willie D's out again for some free barbecue on the patio after the Easter service. Really trying to get as many
You just love the barbecue time.
I love the barbecue, but so does everybody else. So whatever it takes to get them to church on Easter.
There you go.
The week before Easter, by the way, I'm thinking about trying to do a call-a-thon. We did this in the past where everybody shows up. We get a team of people that show up at the church on Monday night. Bring your cell phones. We'll give you a list of 5 to 10 names and to call every single person in the church and invite them to Easter, to one of our Easter services. So be thinking about that. June 26th is our baptism service at Woldemar. And then, like I mentioned, in July, we'll have those joint services at Woldemar. I think that is something that to me has been a fun and a powerful adaptation during COVID, is realizing that one of the strengths is that we could take our foot off the accelerator a little bit in July without sacrificing kind of an excellent worship opportunity and gathering by living into the strengths of being a multi-site. So, this is a really cool thing related to Woldemar. The director there said, "You guys are here so much. We wonder whether you'd just like to join in a partnership with us, we'll give you a key. You can come in, we'll give you some reduced prices and set yourself up. That's kind of cool when a place like says, you can have a key to our place. We like having you here. So Wildamar's been a really great spot that's both campuses, really accessible for both campuses. So we're at the end of the meeting. We got here quicker than we're ahead of schedule, Mark. That's unexpected.
No one ever complains if you get out of a meeting early.
We do like to take a little bit of time to check in on how the meeting went. How'd our town hall go tonight? So always start with celebration. What went well tonight with our gathering? You can unmute yourself or you can type something in the comments.
I appreciated the agenda in PDF format.
Oh, Tim Newman, Mr. PDF.
Absolutely. I'm grateful that Justin stayed muted the whole time.
Mhm.
And I love graphs and statistics, so good job.
Shelley says that it's great seeing people I've not seen in a long time. Bob says he had so missed talking with John Reich. It was nice reconnecting with him.
Thanks, Bob.
You can keep celebrating what went well, or was there anything that needed improvement, was missing or confusing tonight?
The only thing I would say is when we had our little breakout groups, the time went very quickly. And almost always somebody was still trying to say something, and then so even an extra minute might have been good.
Yeah, those breakout, so by the way, once we set a timer and close the breakout room, then when you get that, you get 60 seconds. And then Zoom takes over. Like we don't do something. We don't like say, when is John about to say something? There.
Yeah. No, I realize that, but I realize that the time is inputted at the beginning. You could have used a little bit more.
Justin says, I really did enjoy being able to hear from everyone and how we as a church have focused on safety for everyone through these crazy times. Adam says, missed the 7 p.m. start time, found a 7:30 start time online. I'm sorry I don't know where we miscommunicated there, but.
Well, you were right on time at 7:30, Adam. Way to go.
Tom saying he saw some with both times online. I'll tell you what, communication is just a bear in any organization. And
Yeah,
it's
guess what?
amazing.
We don't communicate perfectly.
Like we will work on the Easter flyer. I already know there will be something wrong on the Easter flyer because it's never perfect. We will look at it and have so many people look at it and there will still be something wrong that we won't even notice till we've been using it for 3 weeks. It's so challenging, but we apologize, Adam.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, Mark, you want to wrap us up in it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Let's wrap up with prayer. Will you join me in prayer? God, we thank you for Sycamore Creek Church and for our mission to ignite authentic life in Christ. We thank you for all the ways that we are doing that as a church. And God, we look forward with some excitement, some nervousness to how that might be possible through an adoption of Asbury. We pray, God, that we would continue to follow you wherever you might lead. If that leads us to an adoption of Asbury, then show us the way and we will follow, God. Continue to put opportunities before us where we might live out our mission, where we might share the good news of Jesus and who he is and what he's done. And help us to do that, God, in ways that are compelling and helpful, and that bring each other and others to you. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.